The studio lights were bright, the cameras rolling, and millions were watching across the country when it happened. What was supposed to be just another political talk show segment suddenly turned into a national controversy. The host, a sharp-tongued American journalist known for his bold and often cruel humor, turned his attention to Diana Carney, wife of former Bank of England Governor Mark Carney. Diana had recently spoken at a global climate summit, where she criticized major media corporations for ignoring the climate crisis. Her speech had been thoughtful, passionate, and backed by years of research. But on the live show, the host twisted her words. He laughed at her accent, called her a bored elite pretending to care, and joked that she probably didn't know the difference between a protest and a photo shoot. The studio audience laughed nervously, unsure if they were supposed to find it funny or offensive. Within minutes, clips from the segment exploded on social media. On TikTok, it was trending under #CarneyWife. Twitter was split. Some mocked Diana, calling her privileged and out of touch. Others were outraged, accusing the journalist of sexism and disrespect. News channels picked it up immediately. CNN covered the backlash, focusing on the tone of the attack. Al Jazeera went deeper, questioning why the Western media was so quick to attack women who spoke up, especially when they challenged the system. But the most surprising reaction was the silence from Diana herself. She didn't post on social media, no public statements, no interviews, not even a quiet retweet. She stayed completely quiet. Behind closed doors, however, something was happening. In a quiet home office in London, Mark Carney sat alone, watching the clip again on his laptop. His face was calm, but his eyes were burning. He had spent his career balancing diplomacy, finance, and power. He had worked with presidents and prime ministers, but this was personal. This wasn't just about politics. This was about his wife, her integrity, her work, her name. He didn't call a lawyer. He didn't call the press. Instead, he picked up his private phone, dialed a number, and spoke just 8 words. "I want a seat on that show." Across the ocean in New York, the producers of the show were stunned. Mark Carney, former central banker, international economist, and quiet power player, wanted to appear live. The host hesitated at first, assuming Carney wanted to defend. His wife didn't get emotional. Maybe it would even help ratings. With a smirk, he agreed. But someone else was watching the drama unfold from a different angle. Maya Farrow, a 27-year-old investigative journalist at Reuters, sat in her office sipping lukewarm coffee as she rewatched the segment. Unlike the public, she wasn't focused on the insults or the laughter. She was focused on the timing. Just 2 days before the attack on Diana, a leaked climate report had been buried in media noise. The same media companies Diana had accused of silencing climate science. Now, suddenly, she was being publicly humiliated. Maya's instincts kicked. This wasn't just viral content. This was controlled distraction. She started digging. Why had the show chosen that clip of Diana? Why now? Who sponsored the segment? And why, of all people, would someone like Mark Carney, usually quiet and distant, step into a media fight? Something didn't add up. As the sun set over London, Mark stood looking out his window, thinking. In New York, the journalist rehearsed his lines, preparing for a fiery exchange. And in a small newsroom in Washington, Maya opened a new folder on her desktop and typed one word as the title, Carney. The air felt heavy, like the moment before a storm. No one could see it yet, but something had been set in motion. And no one, not even the journalist, was ready for what was coming next. The night of the interview arrived. The city outside. The studio buzzed with heat and traffic, but inside the studio, the atmosphere was ice cold. Cameras were already rolling. The audience had been carefully selected, mostly loyal fans of the show, some political junkies, and a few media insiders. They were expecting a tense, maybe even explosive moment. But no one really knew what to expect from Mark Carney. Backstage, Mark sat alone. No notes, no phone, just silence. He wore a navy blue suit, nothing flashy. No media team, no makeup. Only his presence filled the room. A producer knocked gently on the door. "Mr. Carney, we're ready." Mark stood slowly. His hands were steady. He walked toward the studio lights. He wasn't thinking about headlines. He was thinking about control, how the media controls. Stories, how truth is shaped and twisted, and how sometimes silence is mistaken for weakness. The host greeted him on air with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Mr. Carney, welcome to the program," he said. Mark nodded. "Thank you for having me." The host wasted no time. With a voice polished by years of broadcast, he asked his first question wrapped in sarcasm. "So, Mr. Carney, your wife made quite an impact with her speech. Some might say she's more passionate than informed. What do you say to those who question her qualifications?" Mark's expression didn't change. Calm, focused. "My wife has spent 20 years working in policy and climate science," he said, his voice smooth and low. "She holds 2 degrees, led research projects across 3 continents, and has advised both nonprofits and governments. Her passion comes from experience, not emotion." The audience went quiet. The host leaned back. "But surely you understand how some people might see her as, let's say, disconnected. A privileged voice in a global fight." Mark looked him in the eye. "There is a difference between privilege and purpose," he said. "And I think it's dangerous when media personalities confuse the two to avoid real conversation." A few quiet gasps from the audience. The host shifted in his seat, trying to keep the upper hand. "Are you saying journalists shouldn't question public figures?" "I'm saying journalists should question with facts," Mark replied. "Not with mockery, not with personal attacks, and not by using gender, background, or education as weapons." For the first time, the host paused. In the control room, the producers watched nervously. One of them whispered, "Cut to break?" But another said, "No, let it run. This is gold." Back in the studio, Mark continued. "This isn't just about my wife. This is about how the media chooses its targets. Why do voices that speak out about climate change get mocked more than those who deny it completely? Is a woman speaking truth harder to accept than a man selling fear?" The studio audience began to shift, some leaning forward, listening more carefully now. "I didn't come here for a fight," Mark said. "I came here to ask a simple question. When did we stop listening to each other?" The host tried to pivot. "Let's move to economics. You've been critical of certain global markets." But Mark didn't let him escape so easily. "No, let's stay here for a moment," he said. "Let's talk about accountability. About how powerful platforms can either elevate important dialogue or bury it with noise." The host looked caught. He fumbled with his papers. "Sure. But we're just a show. We don't control the world." "No," Mark said, "but you control what people hear. And right now, too many people are hearing insults instead of insight." By now, the audience was silent. The tension in the room had shifted. It wasn't a debate anymore. It was something else, something deeper. In another part of the city, Maya Farrow sat in her apartment watching the broadcast with a notebook. In her lap, she was recording every word. When Mark said platforms can either elevate or bury truth, she underlined it 3 times. She didn't know why yet, but something about this moment felt rehearsed. Not by Carney, but by someone else. It's the attack on Diana, the rapid editing of her speech in media clips. It's the sudden invitation to the show. It all felt too clean. 2. Perfect. She turned to her laptop and opened a new document. Timeline of events. Diana Carney attack. She wrote, June 2nd, Diana speaks at Climate Forum. June 3rd, no coverage. June 5, host previews upcoming Elite Hypocrisy segment. June 7th, live segment Mocking Diana airs. June 8th, Mark requests interview. June 10th, Mark appears live. Too fast, too smooth. This wasn't just a media moment. It was a setup. Back in the studio, the host finally regained some control. Mr. Carney, I think our viewers appreciate your clarity. But some critics say climate discussions have become too political. Mark gave a small smile. Everything becomes political when truth is inconvenient. The cameras stayed on him a few seconds longer than usual. Then the show cut to commercial. The audience began clapping, not loud, but respectfully. The host looked shaken. Mark stood, nodded once to the crowd, and walked off set without a word. Outside the studio, the night was quiet. Mark took a breath, knowing what would come next. This wasn't over. He hadn't won. He had only opened the door, and behind that door was something far more dangerous than a rude journalist. It was the machine that made him possible. The next morning, the headlines were everywhere. Mark Carney silences TV host with class and facts. Global finance versus media drama. Who won? Carney defends wife, exposes media hypocrisy. Clips of the interview went viral. Some praised Carney's calm and intelligent responses. Others called him elitist and rehearsed. News anchors debated whether his appearance helped or hurt his public image. But Maya Farrow wasn't interested in that noise. In a quiet office at an independent newsroom in D.C., Maya stared at two screens. One showed the full video of the interview. The other showed the raw footage before editing. Something wasn't right. She replayed the moment just before Carney entered. The host, smiling into the camera, had said, "We've got a very special guest today. Someone who's been in the news for all the wrong reasons." But that line had never aired in the live version. Maya turned to her editor, Julian, a sharp-eyed ex-reporter from Beirut. "They cut this," she said, "on the YouTube version and the reruns." "Why?" Julian leaned in. "It's small, but intentional." That host wanted to frame Carney as controversial before he said a word. When it backfired, they edited it out. "Exactly," Maya said. "And that makes me think this wasn't spontaneous. It was a hit." Julian nodded slowly. "Whoever planned it miscalculated." Maya sat back, thinking aloud. Why go after Diana Carney at all? She's an academic. She doesn't run for office. She just gave a speech at a climate forum. Julian raised an eyebrow. That's exactly why. The pieces were falling into place. Diana's speech had called out media companies by name, accusing them of ignoring climate change for profit. She even listed specific corporate donors funding both denial groups and media outlets. That made enemies. Big ones. Maya pulled up the speech transcript. In one section, Diana had said the public cannot trust information funded by the very industries profiting from disinformation. Underneath that quote were named several media giants, fossil fuel firms, and private equity groups, including one very familiar name, Redline Capital. Redline Capital wasn't just a financial firm. It had a major stake in media networks, energy companies, and lobbying organizations across 3 continents. Its founder, mysterious Canadian-American billionaire named Alan Dorsey, rarely photographed, never interviewed. And guess who had just bought a controlling share in the network that aired the insulting segment? Redline Capital. Now Maya had something real, a connection. She turned to Julian. "We need to dig into Redline fast." Meanwhile, in London, Mark Carney was already 2 steps ahead. He sat in a quiet room inside a private office near Westminster, speaking with a former intelligence advisor named Fiona Hale. Fiona was smart, loyal, and known for never panicking. Mark showed her the clip Maya had just noticed in the uncut feed. "They edited this out," he said. "Which means they realized their mistake. Someone orchestrated this." Fiona tapped her pen against a notebook. "We're talking about a coordinated media takedown. Not just about Diana, but you." Mark nodded. "They want to provoke a reaction, make us emotional, make us say something that discredits her work. They want to change the subject from truth to controversy. Fiona asked, "Do you think this is linked to the climate summit vote?" Mark looked up sharply. 3 days from now, world leaders would meet in Brussels to vote on a new global climate financing deal one that would limit private capital influence on environmental policy. Red Line had lobbied hard against it. If Diana's voice gained public support again, it could swing pressure onto certain European ministers. Now it made sense. "This isn't personal," Mark said. "It's financial warfare." Back in D.C., Maya received an anonymous message. It was just one line. "Look deeper into Red Line's offshore holdings. Start with Kestrel Partners, then follow the trail." Attached was a zip file. Inside, dozens of spreadsheets, boardroom memos, and encrypted emails, one of them showing a media strategy plan dated 3 days before Diana's segment was mocked live. The email subject line: "Discredit Phase 1, target public voice." Maya's hands trembled slightly. This wasn't a story anymore. This was a covert operation. She stared at her screen, her pulse quickening. Somewhere out there, someone had tried to destroy Diana's reputation, not with facts, but with strategy. And now that Mark had responded so powerfully on live TV, they'd either double down or disappear. Julian walked in. "You ready to publish?" Maya shook her head. "Not yet. We're not telling half a story. We're going to connect every thread, Mark. Diana, Red Line, Kestrel, all of it." Julian smirked. "You've got 72 hours before the Brussels vote. After that, the world moves on." Maya looked at the clock. 72 hours. She clicked open a new file. At the top, she wrote, "The silencing of Diana Carney, a financial power play disguised as media outrage." And as her fingers flew over the keys, far away in a Red Line boardroom, a team of men in suits stared at Maya's name on a security watch list. She was no longer just a journalist. She was a problem. 12 men and women sat around a long, polished table. A large screen displayed a paused image of Maya Farrow's face taken from a public panel discussion 3 months earlier. A red circle blinked in the corner, marking her as a risk asset. "She's connected the dots," said a man in a Navy suit. His name was Decker, head of strategic intelligence at Red Line. His voice was flat but firm. "She has the files, or at least part of them." A woman at the far end of the table, British accent sharp as glass, leaned forward. "The Kestrel documents should have never been traceable. Farrow found them, others can too." An older executive adjusted his tie, clearly annoyed, then plugged the leak. "Discredit her, same as Diana Carney." There was a pause. Decker gave a slow nod, then clicked a remote. A list of Maya's recent communications filled the screen: calls, messages, flights. One highlighted line stood out: "Departure Washington." D.C. destination. Brussels, someone cursed under their breath. "She's going to the summit," the British woman said. "And if she has the Red Line Kestrel emails with her, she'll bury us." Decker finished. No one said it aloud, but everyone in that room understood what came next. Back in D.C., Maya packed a single bag. No entourage, no backup. Just her encrypted laptop, a small hard drive, and a press badge forged to read Freelance Canadian. Syndicate. It was safer than entering as a known U.S. reporter. Julian had tried to talk her out of going. "You don't know what these people are capable of," he'd said. "I know exactly what they're capable of," she'd replied. "That's why I have to go." Outside her apartment, a dark sedan waited. It had followed her for 2 days. Now, she didn't look at it as she left. That would give them what they wanted: fear. She boarded the flight under an alias, her phone turned off, her documents backed up on a cloud server Julian controlled. She'd also sent a message to Mark Carney's office, requesting a meeting at the summit. Meanwhile, in London, Diana was on the move too. Though she'd stayed quiet publicly, she had begun gathering Alice scientists, former diplomats, even a retired MI6 contact she trusted. She didn't know about Maya's investigation yet, but she felt the pressure building. Redline's influence at the summit would be subtle but powerful. Lobbyists working behind closed doors, media discrediting activists, and private dinners with key ministers. She needed to counter that fast, and time was running out. In Brussels, the city buzzed with delegates and media. The Summit Hotel was a fortress of security badges, scanners, camera crews everywhere. Maya slipped through unnoticed, wearing a beige coat and carrying a simple press satchel. Her target wasn't the main event hall. It was a closed-door prep session where lobbyists were rumored to meet European economic advisors before the official vote. She found the room, watched from a hallway, took photos of every delegate entering. Then she saw him, Alan Dorsey, the man behind Redline Capital, tall, silver-haired, and almost mythically calm. He wasn't even supposed to be in Brussels. But there he was, shaking hands with a minister from Italy, whispering to an aide from the Netherlands. Maya's pulse spiked. She raised her phone to take a photo, but just then, a hand clamped gently on her shoulder. She turned quickly. A man in a hotel uniform smiled too politely. "You're not supposed to be here, miss," before she could speak. Two more appeared. It's not hotel staff, security contractors. Their stance said it all. She was made. They escorted her out without touching her, keeping it quiet. Once outside the hotel gates, she stepped into a taxi, hands shaking slightly. She had the photos, now she needed to get them out. She called Julian using a burner phone. "I got Dorsey. He's here." Meeting ministers, Julian exhaled. "Jesus, that confirms it." "I need to leak it now," she said. "Before they block me out completely?" "No," Julian said. "Not yet. Wait until you meet Carney. His name will legitimize the evidence. Otherwise, they'll just say you're paranoid." Across the city, Mark Carney read the encrypted message Maya had sent. He was impressed and alarmed. Her files, if accurate, proved that Redline had interfered not only in media narratives but also in international climate policy. He typed, "A quick response, meet me at 16 o'clock, Southgate entrance. No press badge, wear red scarf." That evening, as Maya waited outside the summit, the next morning, the photo was everywhere. News sites across Europe and North America had the same headline, slightly altered but carrying one message. Mark Carney meets secretly with investigative journalist at climate summit. Social media exploded. Some speculated it was a private deal. Others said Carney was going to expose something big. A few pundits on American television tried to spin it as a publicity stunt, but no one knew the full story. Not yet. Inside the summit compound, the atmosphere had changed. Officials were nervous. Cameras were sharper. Every delegate now checked over their shoulder before stepping into a hallway. Something big was about to break, and no one wanted to be caught on the wrong side of it. In a quiet conference room, Carney reviewed Maya's files once more. The documents outlined how Redline Capital had quietly funneled money to several international policy advisors, shaping climate agreements behind closed doors. But more damning were the internal memos. They showed clear intent to discredit outspoken climate advocates, including Diana Carney herself. There was even a persona strategy sheet detailing which journalists to attack and which ones to neutralize. Maya had cross-referenced this with actual broadcasts and found disturbing patterns. Every time Diana or another policy leader spoke against carbon lobbyists, certain friendly journalists responded within hours with ridicule, insults, or fake analysis. It wasn't just coincidence. It was planned. It was war. Carney leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. Across from him, Maya sat silent, watching him. He hadn't said much since reading the files. Then, finally, he looked up. "Can't just leak this randomly. They'll bury it, twist it, or spin it into something else." Maya nodded. "That's why I came to you. If you go public with this, people will listen." But Carney shook his head. "Not if it's just me. We need someone else. Someone inside, someone they trust." That's when he made the call. Diana. She picked up immediately, her voice calm but alert. You saw the files. I did, Carney said. And we're going to expose them, but I need your help. There was a pause. Say the word, she said. Maya watched as Carney gave his wife the details, the documents, the names, the methods. Diana listened without interrupting. Then she told them something neither expected. There's a vote scheduled for tomorrow. They're planning to pass a clean investment framework on paper. But buried in the subsection is a clause giving Redline power to influence future infrastructure plans through advisory status. It's legal corruption. Maya's eyes widened. They're locking in influence for the next decade. Diana confirmed it. And once that's passed, they'll be untouchable. So the three of them, Mark, Diana, and Maya, agreed to act fast. That evening, Diana took a risk. She leaked part of the documents anonymously to The Guardian, along with a summary memo marked for immediate review. At the same time, Carney reached out to two trusted former colleagues still active at the IMF and European Commission. He called in favors. He told them what was coming and how their silence would make them complicit. Okay, Maya? She prepared the broadcast. It wasn't just any upload. She'd gained remote access to a secure media server through a whistleblower inside a satellite news network. It meant she could insert her 3-minute report directly into the live broadcast stream of the summit's closing remarks. It was dangerous. It was illegal, but it would work. The next day, the summit stage was lit, polished, and ready for the final statement. Redline's operatives watched from the side, smug and composed. The vote was about to pass. But 5 minutes before the feed went live, something strange happened. The screens behind the delegates flickered, then turned black. Then a video began to play. Maya's voice clear and direct. Before you hear promises of progress, you should know what's happening behind the curtain. This is not about sustainability. It's about control. The audience froze. These documents show how Redline Capital used media manipulation, political donations, and public deception to shape global climate policy in their favor. They silenced experts. They mocked leaders. They tried to discredit my voice, and they tried to destroy Diana Carney. Then the screen showed Dorsey's emails, blurred names, but real dates, real subjects. Then the media manipulation chart, the mocking scripts, the payoffs, the vote buyouts. It lasted 3 minutes. And when the video ended, silence. Not one official moved. Then came the whispers. Then the phones buzzed. Then the journalists in the press box exploded into action. Redline operatives began to move fast, some trying to spin, others trying to escape the cameras. But it was too late. The story was already out. The summit paused. The vote postponed. And somewhere in the chaos, Alan Dorsey looked up at the screen, and for the first time his smile cracked. 'Cause the one thing his empire couldn't buy was truth. Maya's video had triggered a digital earthquake. The leaked broadcast was picked up by major news outlets across the globe. CNN ran it under the headline, Media Manipulation in Global Climate Policy Exposed. Al Jazeera called it the Green Curtain, how power, profit, and propaganda collide. Clips went viral in every language. Translations were instant. The story reached over 80 countries by nightfall. At the United Nations, emergency meetings were called. Several summit delegates who had supported the Redline clause suddenly backed away, claiming they were unaware of its true nature. European leaders demanded a full inquiry. Activist groups flooded the streets in Berlin, London, and New York. Protesters carried signs with Diana Carney's face next to the word silenced. But not everyone stayed quiet. Alan Dorsey appeared on television the next morning, .com/clean-shaven, dressed in a gray suit as if nothing had changed. Sitting across from a news anchor, he denied everything. No manipulation here. He said, "This is just an emotional reaction from people who lost a debate. Nothing illegal happened." And certainly nothing unethical. He smiled, but his eyes twitched slightly. Journalists weren't buying it this time. Later that afternoon, Maya received a phone call from a blocked number. She paused before answering. The voice on the other end was deep and nervous. British accent, male. "I saw the video," he said. "You missed something." Maya froze. "Who is this?" "I work at the European Development Bank," the man replied. "I have access to internal memos that show a direct payment stream between Redline Capital and senior infrastructure advisors. If you're serious about stopping this, meet me tonight." "Where?" Maya asked. There was a pause. "Brussels. Train station, platform 9, midnight. Come alone." He hung up. Maya looked at the screen. She didn't hesitate. She booked the next flight. Meanwhile, Mark Carney met with a special investigator from the UN's Financial Transparency Unit. They sat in a sealed room. No cameras, no notes allowed. The agent asked him one question. "Did you know about Redline's influence before your wife was targeted?" Mark paused, then answered, "I suspected, but I didn't have proof. Not until now." He handed over the documents Maya had shown him. The investigator nodded slowly, then said something that chilled him. "You're going to need protection. If the corruption goes as high as we think, you've just made enemies far beyond Redline." By midnight, Maya stood on the freezing platform in Brussels. No one else around. She wore a black coat and carried only a phone and a flash drive in her pocket. Then a man stepped out of the shadows. A trench coat, glasses. He walked straight to her. "I don't have much time," he said. He handed her a folded folder. Inside were printed bank statements and email records. Some were from fake companies registered in Cyprus. Others showed shell transactions in Dubai, all leading back to Redline's senior director of strategy. "A woman named Eleanor Voss. She runs the political side," the man whispered. "Dorsey's just the face. Voss built the machine." Maya looked up. "Why are you giving this to me?" He hesitated. "Because if this doesn't come out, we're all complicit." Then he walked away. Maya uploaded the files to a secure drive and immediately sent them to a trusted contact. In investigative media, she also copied them to Mark and Diana, just in case. Back in London, Diana appeared on BBC News for her first public interview since the scandal broke. She was composed, sharp, and firm. "I never asked to be in this position," she said. "But when people in power use their influence to silence truth, someone must speak up. Not just for me, but for all the voices buried under corporate money and media tricks." Her words were clipped into reels across TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Even teenagers started sharing them. It was no longer just a scandal. It was a movement. That same night, the European Commission announced a freeze on all infrastructure projects linked to Redline. The clause in the summit deal was withdrawn. Multiple resignations followed. But just when things seemed to be turning, Maya's phone buzzed again. It was from an unknown number. A single text appeared. "Stop or you won't make it to part 7. She stared at the screen. A chill ran down her spine. And far away, in a private office lit only by lamplight, Eleanor Voss watched the news coverage and whispered to herself, "They want a war. Let's give them one." The morning after the threat, Maya didn't sleep. She sat in a dim hotel room in Brussels, staring at her phone. The message kept replaying in her mind. "Stop or you won't make it to part 7. It was a warning, not just a threat, but a declaration. Someone knew exactly how far she had come and how far she was willing to go. But Maya wasn't going to stop. She dressed quietly, left her hotel, and walked straight to the European Broadcasting Union's headquarters. There she met her old mentor Rafiq Aziz, a legendary war correspondent, now retired but still respected across every major network. "You look like hell," Rafiq said gently, taking her coat. Maya handed him the flash drive. "This is everything. The fake contracts, the money trail, the woman behind it all." Eleanor Voss. Rafiq inserted the drive into his laptop. As he read through the files, his face darkened. "You know what you've done, don't you?" he whispered. "This isn't just Redline. It's bigger. Voss isn't just a strategist. She's tied to intelligence networks, old Cold War money, private security contractors. She falls, others fall too. Governments, alliances." "I know," Maya said softly, "and that's why we have to go live. Today." They made the call. An emergency international broadcast was scheduled for 7 p.m. European time. Maya would present the investigation. No editing, no filters, just the truth. As the hour approached, tension gripped the newsroom. Security was tightened. Police cars waited outside. Snipers were rumored to be stationed on rooftops, watching for any unusual movement. At 6:55, Maya sat in the studio under the lights. Her heart pounded, but her voice was calm. She looked directly into the camera, headset in place, hands folded. In front of her, she began, "Is not just a story about a journalist mocking a woman on live TV. This is about power, corruption, and how easily the truth can be buried beneath politics and profit." She took a breath and clicked her remote. Behind her, graphics appeared, charts, names, faces. Clips of Eleanor Voss at international events. Footage of Alan Dorsey shaking hands with finance ministers. The red line documents with signatures. And offshore accounts highlighted. Maya walked the audience through each link carefully and clearly. By 7:10, the world was watching, and Voss was moving. Inside a luxury suite in Geneva, Eleanor Voss watched the broadcast in silence. Her advisors scrambled behind her, yelling into phones, shredding paper, erasing digital trails. But she remained still, sipping tea. "She's very good," Voss muttered. "Too good." One of her aides leaned in. "What do we do?" Finally stood, her eyes were cold. "We delay, distract, and if necessary, disappear." She picked up her private phone and dialed a number. No name, just a symbol on the screen. A Black Hawk. "Activate Protocol 11, she said. "Tonight." Back at the studio, Maya wrapped up the broadcast. Her voice cracked only once. When she spoke about Diana Carney and how her silence had been a shield for a much deeper truth. "Mockery isn't journalism," Maya said. "It's a weapon used to hide what should be seen. And now you've seen it." She ended the show. The studio erupted in quiet applause. But Maya didn't smile. She knew this was just the beginning. That night, riots broke out in 3 cities: Washington, Brussels, and London. Some believed Maya had exposed the truth. Others claimed she was part of a global smear campaign. Alan Dorsey went into hiding. His show was suspended. But Eleanor Voss, she vanished. Interpol issued a watch notice. But she had already escaped through private jet, fake IDs, and a trail too cold to follow. Mark and Diana Carney issued a joint statement the next day. "This isn't about reputation anymore. It's about reform. And reform begins when the public chooses truth over convenience." Maya Brooks received an award a week later, but she never showed up to accept it. She had moved to a new city under a different name, not hiding, just watching, listening, waiting for the next whisper, the next buried story, 'cause she knew power doesn't sleep. And the truth never ends. With one broadcast,